Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming in for this special meeting, May 31st. So before we start this evening's special council meeting, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is unceded Mi'kmaq territory. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people of this territory, past, present, and future. Yesterday, city staff lowered all flags located on city buildings to half-mast in honor and memory of the 215 child victims discovered at a former residential school in Kamloops, British Columbia. The residential school system is a stain in the fabric of this country, and the path to reconciliation is long and winding as the city moves forward with the reconciliation process. I sincerely hope that tonight's meeting will be a step in the right direction. So at this time, with your permission, I would ask that you all rise and join me for 1 minute of silence to commemorate the victims and survivors of the residential school system across this country and here at home. Thank you. Okay. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, discussion item 4E, the reconsideration, I'll be in a conflict in that particular discussion.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Any others? Approval of the agenda. Councilor McCabe.
I'm wondering if we could move G to the first resolution regarding Sir John A. Macdonald statue up to A for tonight.
Is there a reason? Do you have a reason? Is it because Laurel, do you have to leave? Is that the purpose? Okay. Councillor Rivard.
Yeah, are we okay with, I have a separate one. D, the...
Electronic voting? No, sorry.
D, the RFP and board resolution. Should be moved into closed session as there's legal, could be legal question. I talked to Mr. Kelly about this. Maybe moved into closed session first before chatting in the open session.
Can we leave that till the end?
Yeah.
Closed session?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Councillor Tweel?
Considering that there's considerable interest in item E, and there's folks here tonight awaiting the decision on the reconsideration, I would like to recommend that this particular item be moved up to the top of the agenda, because we got people here from Angus Drive, and to have them wait for an hour, to my mind, would not be appropriate, considering the interest and they're waiting the outcome from council. So I would like to recommend that the reconsideration for Angus Drive, PIN number 419143 and 413 St. Peter's Road, PIN number 419135, be moved to the top of the agenda.
Mr. Kelly, do you have a point to make?
Yes, Bishop, and council can decide what they want to do, but we do have pre-booked sessions. One is for 5:45, and that's for the people with the enterprise, which is calling from across the country, Worship, which is on the WebEx. And number 2, we have a 6:15 presentation from Elections PEI. So we can move things around as council wishes, but we're trying to hold to those 2, Worship.
Well, because of Laurel Lee and Doug have previous commitments, I'd like to move that to A and then reconsideration to B. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Is that all right, everybody?
Yep.
So A will be Sir John A. Macdonald B will be reconsideration Angus. C will be enterprise leasing program, and so forth. Is that all right? Good? And the other issue on the RFP award resolution, that will go into a closed session. Is that all right? Good?
Yep.
Motion to move?
No, yes, but Mr. Richard McEwen's trying to get back in. He just sent a message. He got bumped off the line and he's trying to get back in, waiting for a moderator.
Councillor Drawn, you on the line? Councillor Drawn?
Sorry.
Sorry, thank you.
Both off?
Yes, Your Worship.
Can we just try to get them back on, please? What's that? Okay, let's go. Let's move.
We're just getting him back online, Your Worship. Is that you, Councillor Drawn?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Apologize for that.
Don't press your power button anymore there, Councillor Drawn.
I'm not doing a thing.
Okay, so the first issue is the resolution in regards to the Sir John A. Macdonald.
And you'll see the report that's put together by staff in your package. But with the most recent news coming out, I think I would like to move tonight that the Economic Development, Tourism and Event Management Resolution number 1 that was dated May 31st, 2021, related to Sir John A. Macdonald be deferred, and further that the statue of John A. Macdonald located at the corner of Queen Street, Victoria be removed while work on the original resolution that dated May 10th, continues.
Okay. Councillor Rivard, you raised your hand to second the resolution.
She beat me to the punch. Your worship, no, I'm not.
Can you just rise, please, and just ask?
I'm not, I didn't raise my hand to second the resolution. Thank you, Councillor McCabe. I'm actually looking to go one step further. I'm looking for the removal of the statute forever. And last month's vote that I had, it was all about reconciliation. It was all about finding a balance, and I truly believe that. But what happened last week, and the news that broke, is extremely sad, heartbreaking, and tragic. And when I look at Sir John A., the statue, or I think about who Sir John A. was, I had this real sour taste in my mouth now. The fact that, again, a decision that was made, years and years and years ago. I want to get that history, but what I see when I see Sir John A. now on the streets, I think there are 215 Indigenous children that lost their lives because of the school system, because of what happened, okay? Did Sir John A. commit the murders? No. But we all know the history. And for me, I think that's extremely sad. And I think we have an opportunity to say, something, enough's enough, okay? And I'm sorry that I didn't do my research enough on this decision, okay? And clearly, based on this, I got it wrong. For years, people speculated about missing children. It's not speculation anymore. These people are dead. They were found. 215. This is just the beginning. Okay? They're investigating different schools.
Excuse me, Worship,
Okay.
we're debating, and I hate to interfere, but we are debating. We have to have the motion on the floor, so we have one.
I'm asking for an amendment to the motion
I'll second it.
To amend or replace.
to replace or amend. It's up to councillor. I'm asking that we amend it to remove Sir John A. Okay, because of the reasons that I'm stating. Sorry. So again, Sir John A. the statue that sits here today.
But can you just finish what you want to do?
Yeah, I know, but Your Worship, I have 5 minutes. I just want to make a point. So again, we look at the statue, and what is it symbolic of? Okay? So for me personally, it's not symbolic of anything. It's a statue of the first Prime Minister, and I get all that. I understand that, and I appreciate that. But it doesn't affect me in any way. But I'll tell you what, for the families of these Indigenous people, the children, okay, across Canada, it affects them deeply. And again, it doesn't impact me. But here I am voting on keeping something that has such a negative impact on so many people's lives. And I get it. I get Sir John A. did good and bad. But what happened last week finally came to, well, it's no longer speculation. I don't know, in lieu of that, I'm asking that Sir John A. be removed and not taken away from his achievement. I just think that it's just I think it's just a really negative piece of work right now, art, that sits on the corner of that street, and I'd rather not see it.
So just procedurally, Mr. Kelly, why don't you explain to
So-
Councillor McCabe and
So the motion's been,
Rivard.
the first motion was placed on the floor, Your Worship. I did not hear a seconder. The council has been asked, if I heard correctly, to replace her motion with the Councillor Rivard's motion. That discretion rests with the.
Councillor
mover of
McCabe,
the
do you want
first
it to
one.
happen?
I'm fine with discussion or vote on that for sure.
Okay,
And
so,
I'll second it.
Sorry, are you pulling back your original, just so we keep track for the minutes?
If that's required,
It's up to you, council, it's in your hands. So you're pulling that back? So she's
So,
pulling
my
back.
understanding is you're pulling it back?
the deferral.
It's not been seconded, that's why you're pulling it back, so that,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. He's got a resolution on the floor. She's pulled back her resolution, so his resolution's on the
I'm asking her to
floor.
amend or pull back the resolution and put on a resolution.
it wouldn't be to amend, because yours goes to the nth degree, hers is at a certain point, so you need, it's one or the other for
Yeah.
discussion first.
Well,
So we're going with that resolution?
Yeah, I second it.
And it's
I'll
second. So there's a resolution on the floor, And the resolution, Mr. Kelly?
No, Your Worship, I will read it into the minutes now if the council wants us to go forward with it.
Yeah, that's
I
what you
just want to
said.
make sure I understand this, though. The resolution that was put on the floor by the chair,
Right,
is that still standing?
Right now, it's not been seconded, no.
no.
And so, as I understood or
Yeah.
understand, Councillor Rivard has asked Councillor McCabe to replace her, or to put his motion in place of hers.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
My
correct.
My understanding is the councillor responsible to put a resolution on to remove the whole thing until the...
My resolution was,
So I
Until
have
we
here,
agree to the last resolution is done.
so here it is here, if I could, for
Read
for
it
the
out.
record, if I could, Councillor.
Councillor McCabe,
I
can
put it
can he
on.
read it? He's got it right there.
Okay.
So the motion was moved by Councillor McCabe, second by Councillor Rivard, that the Economic Development and Tourism Event Management Resolution Number 1, dated March 31st, 2021, related to Sir John A. Macdonald be deferred, and further, that the statue of Sir John A. located at the corner of Queen Street and Victoria Road be removed while the work on the original resolution dated May 10th, 2021 is continued. So, Your Worship,
So,
again, I did not hear a seconder, then Councillor Byrd spoke,
Yeah.
and he moved another motion, and I'll see where that goes before I put that one on the floor.
Yeah.
But right now, that was a motion that was put on the floor.
she's agreed to remove it. He's replaced it with a seconder, Councillor Yankoff.
So I'm trying to figure this out. So you pulled yours off, right?
mine's off right now.
But you're putting his in his, so you're moving his, correct?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so what's his resolution?
Your Worship, it's moved by Councillor McCabe, second by Councillor Byrd, that the Sir John A. statue located at the corner of Queen Street and Victoria Road be removed, and further, that the resolution related to Sir John A. Macdonald statue amendments dated May 10th, 2021 be rescinded.
Got it. Got it? Clear? Questions?
So with the resolution we passed previous to this with having the changes made, it's not going to happen now. Just going to get rid of the whole thing, is that what we're saying?
Is that the intent of your resolution, Councillor? It's his resolution.
No, not Your Worship, it's Councillor McCabe's resolution, Your Worship.
It was my suggestion, yes.
Is that the intent? Okay.
So did the committee talk about that?
No, I put out to my committee the original resolution. This is new information on the floor. He's not on the economic tourism.
Okay.
Yeah. Councillor McLeod?
So the motion, the resolution should read, anything to do with economic development, tourism, event management. I mean, our resolution went through the committee, but this resolution's coming from the council floor, so it should have nothing to do with economic development.
He amended it.
I
He amended it on the floor.
His resolution.
It's amended.
Just for clarity, Your Worship, the motion has not been amended.
Well, it's been replaced from the floor.
Correct, Your
Yeah.
But it didn't come through the committee.
No, it's coming off the floor, but
So that's why I'm saying it shouldn't say economic development. It's just-
But I wonder if we should go back to the committee for that recommendation, if that's what they want to do.
Councillor Bernard, I understand what you're saying, but look, the emails and the conversation on this, just everywhere it's not good. It is not good, and I think it's time to move in the right direction. I think this is the right direction. We just have to start moving on it. Well, as my wife said this morning, you know what, Philip? The discovery of the 215 children that's it. And I've spoken to many others that have said, it's done, I'm moving on. And that's the sense I'm getting from what you moved here today, Councillor Rivard, correct?
Were you down there to see the 215 pairs of shoes?
Councillor Yankoff was.
It
And what was your,
extremely moving, it was sad.
you were there?
I was there, and I 100% fully support the amendment to the resolution that we remove Sir John A. permanently.
Councillor McCabe,
And I think when I read about the Evacuate Assembly and Council statement, when it talks about the event, especially with this new information that we've received, this is just the tip, I think, of things that are going to continue to happen. We know, that it reopens a wound that they haven't had a chance to heal from. And I just don't know why I don't feel that I'm in a position to determine to continue to pour salt in the open wound.
can I go with Councillor Ramsey, then Councillor Duffy? Councillor Ramsey.
If I'm understanding this correctly, Your Worship, thank you. So once it's going to be removed, because there wasn't one suggestion in the past to move it somewhere else within the city. So if we agree with this today, it's gone completely from the city?
That's a good question.
So
Well,
if it's passed, your worship, obviously.
It's taken out of
We'll
there.
take council's direction and remove it. What happens to it from there is yet to be
That's a
determined.
future decision of council.
He can be moved to Confederation Center.
He's
somewhere.
coming off the corner of Queen Street.
Yeah, but that's not what we're asking here today. We're asking, or what we're sort of suggesting today is that he's gone forever.
No.
And I'm just wondering if he's gonna, if there's an opportunity, and I'm not for it or against it, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity, because there was some suggestions to the library or someplace along the line. I don't know, I'm just asking these questions.
So that is yet to be, sorry, your worship. If council makes this decision, we can come back with suggestions, but the point is, if it passes, is to a remove, put it in storage for the interim until council makes that final decision.
Yes, okay.
I know
Okay.
Councilor
Can I
Duffy
just ask Councillor Duffy first?
I just want to state that in the resolution, it does actually say removal from the corner. So it doesn't say where or
Okay.
can it be set up, just saying removal from.
There's room for discussion.
Councillor Duffy, sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
Without addressing the meat of the matter that's going on here, just addressing the process, I think, excuse me, back in our Trainer Street days, so to speak, one of our solicitors, Ms. Campbell, offered us an opinion that stated from the MGA that when a resolution comes to council, it has to have a recommendation, or I'm sorry, a report from the staff of that committee, and it has to have a recommendation from the committee, and neither of which we have before us for Councilor Revere's change of avenue, so to speak. So without addressing the matter, that's the process.
Yeah.
Then it should go back to the committee
It
for, come back in here with a report from the staff and a recommendation from the elected people on that committee.
Councillor Duffy, because of the sensitivity of this.
But you just can't,
I know,
you
I
just
know.
can't sidestep
No,
the act
no,
passed by the
No,
president.
but I think this came up when we talked about going way back to an issue that came from the committee. I thought it came from the committee. It actually ended up on the floor, we voted on it, and then Trainer Street come up, and then we had to look at this whole process. A resolution was presented by Councillor McCabe. The resolution was changed on the floor. So the recommendation came from the committee, correct? Did you
Not the one you're voting on.
reach out to your committee on this resolution?
On the original, not
Yeah.
on this.
Not-
No, but on the original. So the original got amended or got changed on the floor. I believe that's acceptable. Go ahead.
Your worship, my fear is this, is that, and I understand what Councilor Duffy's saying, and
Yeah.
I'm all about process, but the problem is that we had a resolution that was read by Councilor McCabe, okay, that I wasn't privy to as part of economic development, but it's not one that I totally want to get rid of, okay, because it does have the element of remove Sir John A, but again, that's the only thing we're voting on, and I don't want to kill that so easily. I want to try, I guess, my hand at mine first, remove them altogether, as opposed to the other way in the event that this one fails. So I think just because I'm not part of economic development doesn't mean that, as a councillor in the chamber, that I can't ask the chair, to make I'm going to say a friendly amendment or
change.
remove and change it. It's really not fair to anybody else that doesn't sit on economic development or any committee in that sense.
Good point.
So that's all.
Good point. And again, it's just, the spirit of the resolution is still there, correct, Mr. Kelly? Did you look at the spirit of the resolution?
To remove at this time, your worship, and then again, at some point in time, council will have to decide for the long term what is the wishes
Yeah.
with the statute, your worship.
Yeah, so I think,
No, that's not what the one we're voting on is.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be, sorry, your worship.
Go ahead, sir.
The motion is to remove the statute. If that is passed, staff will put it in storage pending a further information or report coming to council as to what is the long-term wishes with regards to the statute.
Councillor Brennan.
thank you. Yeah, I think, as everybody knows, it's a very emotional issue
It is.
from the news that was released over the weekend.
Yeah.
And it probably does make a lot of sense, and I think, especially with what Councilor Ramsey said, that's probably talked about before, and I think probably that should happen. We can move it, put it into a Confederation Center library or what have you, and still have the history there. So, yeah, it's a pretty emotional weekend for
It
everybody.
is. Yeah. And Councilor Bernard, the emails, like I've received emails that I've never received from residents before, and they just said, look, Philip, this has really struck a chord with me. Please do something now. And I think that's what Councilor Rivera and McCabe is trying to do here. Councilor Yankoff.
And just a reminder to everyone that whatever long-term thing happens with the statue of John A. Macdonald, remember the statue isn't history. It's a statue, and so really we're not getting rid of history. We're getting rid of a statue. So, thank you.
Councilor Rivera.
Just to touch on what Councilor Yankoff said, the thing is, and I think I said this during, is again, I don't remember the history. That's fine. I don't remember the history of Sir John A. Okay, and I don't. And until this happened, I didn't do any research, and I did, and it's scary. Okay, to see the bad, and now we're really seeing it, and it's so sad. But again, this statue for me, this is the history I remember right now. So this is my history of Sir John A. right now. So when I walk by that statue, as I did today, it reminds me of 215 children who were found last week. That's what it means to me right now. So statue and history will mean something different to different people. But I don't remember, because I wasn't born, of the stuff he did. And I can read about it still. But I'm telling you, that statue in the corner, it's very sensitive, and that's what it reminds me of. And I can promise you, from the phone calls I received today, and the people that spoke to me, that's what they see. And that's I don't want that to be what the city of Charlottetown is. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor.
So, could Mr. Kelly read the difference, read Councilor Rivera's resolution and Councilor McCabe's proposed resolution earlier? Does it say temporarily on Councilor Rivera's resolution?
No,
So it should though.
so right now it states, if I could, Your Worship.
Go right ahead there, Mr. Kelly.
The current motion on the floor
Yes.
states that the Sir John A. Macdonald statue located at the corner of Queen Street and Victoria Road be removed, and further that the resolution related to Sir John A. Macdonald statue amendments dated May 10th, 2021 be rescinded. So again, if that is passed, staff will do as council has directed.
So-
Which is to remove, we'll put it in storage, and we'll come back further as to what council's long-term plan is for the statue.
The resolution doesn't say that.
That would be our
Can you
approach.
put that
if we
on
did.
that resolution?
If you wish to amend it, we can make sure that that's done. The other difference between the first and the second is it to removed, but under the first one where it says, and further that the statue of Sir John A. located at the corner of Queen and Victoria Road be removed while work on the original resolution dated May 10th is continuing. So if the other one passed, staff would still be working towards finding a resolution on those 5 points. With this one going forward, those 5 points stay paused or stops at this time. And if you wish to amend this one to include your commentary that is removed and come back with a further up as to what will happen with the statute, is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
So you
If you want it addressed at a later time, or you don't want it addressed at a later time, that's my point.
Yeah. But, Councillor, that will be reflected in the minutes. This will be
It should
reflected.
be reflected in the resolution. There's not a lot of words.
Councillor Rivera.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Again.
Oh, can you
and I-
stand,
and I-
please? Just so
And I certainly appreciate everyone's comments on this, I really do, and again,
he's the referee.
I don't think this is one where we want to keep the door open. I really don't. As Councilor Yankoff said, you can't be half pregnant, right? It's either you do it or you don't. And by continuing to leave the door open, we continue to leave ourselves open to being scrutinized and not making decisions. Across Canada, municipalities are doing this, and they didn't know this information, okay?
Correct.
Now we do know this information, and I'll tell you what, the city of Charlottetown really has an opportunity to make a bold statement to the residents of Prince Edward Island, Charlottetown, but Canada, that guess what? It's not right. And that's why I don't think we should leave the door open in any capacity. If council of the day decides to do something later or whatever, it's not like on the resolution, your worship, it says remove them from the corner.
Yeah.
It doesn't say throw them in the river.
No.
It doesn't say melt them. It doesn't say these things, okay? So he's just removed.
Yeah.
Permanently from the corner, okay? If there's a better location at some time, then a resolution can come to say that Sir John A is being located at the library, or wherever. But for now, I don't want any doors left open on this at the moment, because it's...
And Councillor McCabe, I'm sure that you will try to reconvene a meeting with the Abequate Assembly of Councils.
Well, I think that'll come back to our committee and direction and stuff will be discussed at that point, but I do agree with Councillor Rivera. I think in light of everything that's happened, that it's time we maybe acknowledge that we need to do this at this time.
Okay, question called?
Question called.
Question called. Okay, all those in favor, please put up your hand. Councillor Duran, yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay. Thank you. So the second item is reconsideration. Do we have?
Yes, I'll bring
Thank
it
you,
forward.
Orally. Thank you, Doug. Who's coming in, the lawyer?
So if you guys can go down by the door, please.
Is Mr. McKenzie here?
Yes, they're here, your worship.
Is Dan here?
Over here. What are we doing now, your worship?
It's the reconsideration of Angus Drive, PID number 419143
Number 80, okay.
and
Thank you.
413 St. Peters Road. PID number 419135. So we have Mr. Hooley here and also Alex Forbes, the manager of Planning and Development. And just to make note, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Cody had to leave because he's in conflict. He works with Melts. Mark. Okay, do you want to start off, Mr. Forbes? Or-
Worship,
Sorry,
short
Councillor,
introduction.
it's your portfolio. Sorry about that, sir.
The planning board, of course, met and considered this request for reconsideration. Planning board has sent it in here with a recommendation that the council approve for reconsideration. There's two out of the 3 points have been, thresholds have been addressed in the course of the reconsideration. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Ford and Mr. Hooley for further details.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, thank you, Your Worship. So this is an application, it's up for reconsideration. The owner of Mel's Convenience Store has appealed the decision of council in regard to the decision that was made on this property. So they've appealed, but at the same time they filed for reconsideration, which is now kind of standard practice, which allows the city to review their process prior to it going to IRAC, to determine whether we can see whether there was any irregularities or anything that was missed, that we could correct that at this stage and then forego the IRAC appeal if it was deemed that there was any issues that we should review. Councillor Duffy alluded to, as a part of the zoning bylaw, there is the reconsideration process that's laid out inside the zoning bylaw, and attached to that as well, there's a policy that goes with that. There are 2 stages to reconsideration request, and that's, again, it's laid out in your report. So for the first stage, the application for reconsideration is required to pass the threshold test. Pass the threshold test, the applicant must provide sufficient particulars in the request to show that the request falls within the stated grounds in the zoning bylaw. And then, this is important, council may review, rescind, change, or vary any order or decision made by the development officer or council, provided that the new material facts or evidence not available at the time of the initial order or decision have come to light. All material changes of circumstances that occurred since the initial order or decision, there's clear doubt to the correctness of the order. And then it says, if after receiving recommendations from the planning board, council determines that the request passes the threshold test, the lot consolidation and rezoning request will be heard pursuant to section 3.15.5 of the bylaw. Alternatively, if council decides the threshold test is not satisfied under this, then the appeal will just go to bylaw. So the letter that came in from Mel's in regard to why they thought that this required a review from their perspective. Under the issue of the new material facts evidence not available at the time, they allude to at the public hearing, there was, that there were some issues related to the roundabout that were not known, or they think that they were not known. And so in bold, they highlight there was not sufficient distance for a vehicle to safely exit the parking lot at Mel's and change lanes, entering the roundabout and proceed in an easterly direction. The pedestrian crossing is also located in an area where vehicles turning out of Mel's may not be paying attention to crossing pedestrians while trying to change lanes. If the back access road is not permitted, the safety concerns brought up by the province would be greatly reduced or eliminated. Staff have alluded to the fact that this is it's somewhat of an interesting application. It was made on the request of Mel's, but it was generated by the province. So it was the roundabout that generated the application from Mel's. So when we're at the public hearing, most of the discussion, as in most applications, was focused around what Mel's was applying for. He wanted to, there was 2 additional residential properties there. He wanted to rezone them to NUC to get the driveway out to Angus Drive. So a lot of the discussion at the public hearing focused on those elements of it. And then the other issue is, the applicant's concerned that once the province proceeds with the roundabout and they put that median down between one roundabout and then that median will go all the way to the next roundabout, clearly it will have an impact in regard to how the customers leaving Mel's get back into the roundabout, and whether they're going back into town or out of town, and it puts a lot more pressure on that access point if the Angus Drive driveway is not included as well, because that split traffic a little bit. So they allude to that in here. So at the meeting, the province the province wasn't there to get approval for the roundabout. They were there to kind of just support or back up Mr. McIsaac's application for Mel's, and so they didn't make a full presentation. They did answer questions, but there were some things that could come to light. So again, they didn't make a detailed presentation. The applicant has referenced in their letter of reconsideration the impacts that will occur if all traffic exiting from Mel's without the proposed Angus Drive access is directed towards the roundabout. And the province has confirmed that they agree with the applicant's assessment of the proposed impacts to the roundabout if Angus Drive access is not created. So staff is indicating in our report that we think that meets, or it's up to you folks, but if you think that meets the test number 1, staff are prepared to recognize that is new material facts or evidence as to how traffic will enter the roundabout and whether that's safe or not. And then the next one is a material change of circumstances occurred since the initial order or decision. At the public meeting, Councillor Tweel asked staff whether the proposed roundabout would proceed if the Angus Drive access and rezoning application request was not approved. And Laurel Thompson answered that question, and she indicated that the roundabout would proceed if Mel's rezoning was denied. And because I was in a lot of those discussions with Laurel, I know why she answered it that way, but she should have deferred that to the province, because again, it was for the province to answer that question. But in her mind at the time, because of previous conversations she had, but so in hindsight, I indicated in my report, Laurel shouldn't likely answered that question, but the province didn't clarify that evening either. They didn't step up and say, well, no, that's not correct. I mean, that's what, if they were strident to her about it, they should have commented at the time. So, the answer to this question may have led the public or councillors to think that there were 2 initiatives. These 2 initiatives were not directly related and could be proceed independent of each other. And I guess what we found out since the the decision of council is the province is indicating that they will not build the roundabout. They're emphatic with me, at least, and they've been in the press because they weren't in the past, but they're making it very clear that they're not going to build the roundabout if the Angus Drive access is not provided. So the two are interrelated. So we think on that ground as well that the public may not know that. You folks made a decision, it's your decision, you can do whatever you want with this, but if somebody claims, well, at the public meeting, it was my understanding the roundabout was going to proceed, well, that's not the issue. So, again, Mr. Hooley's here, but in the interest of, if it does go to IRAC, it's likely better for us if we do, if you reconsider the decision, you still make the same result, but there'll be no miscommunication in regard to what the public thought or didn't think about whether the roundabout would actually happen. Because if you do go back out to a public hearing, it will be clear that in the absence of that access point at Angus Drive, the roundabout will not happen. And some people at the public meeting, and if they listen to Councillor Tweel's answer, or the answer that was provided to Councillor Tweel, may think, well, look, the roundabout was going to happen anyways, and that's not the case. So on those 2 points alone, staff feel that it's your decision, but if you want to reconsider that, we think that it meets those 2 threshold tests, that information that came in from Dan McIsaac, Mel's Convenience Store. And with that, that's my report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, just before we start, Mr. Kelly, do you want to read the resolution first? Just so we can put it on the floor, Councillor. We just want to put the resolution on the floor first. Okay, Councillor Duffy? I think that he's just getting signatures. Do you want to read it, sir? Is that the one that's 2 pages?
It's 1 page.
Okay. Need a glass of water?
Okay, Your Worship.
Okay.
Your Worship, moved by Councillor Duffy, second by Councillor Yankoff, that the request to amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning development bylaw for Angus Drive, Lot 40, PID 419143, from single detached residential large R1L zone to mixed-use corridor MUC zone, and 413 St. Peters Road, PID 419135, from low-density residential R2 zone to the mixed-use corridor zone. And to amend Appendix A, future land use map of the official plan for Angus Drive, Lot 40, PID 419143, and 413 St. Peters Road, PID 419135, from mature neighborhoods to village center commercial, and further to consolidate Angus Drive, Lot 40, PID 419143, 413 St. Peters Road, PID 419135, and 419 St. Peters Road, PID 192187, in order to facilitate road upgrades by the province to St. Peters Road and construct a second means of access for the convenience store to and from Angus Drive, be recommended in accordance with Council's recommendation process as prescribed by Section 3.15 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw for reconsideration, which ought to include a second public hearing, Your Worship.
Did you want to amend that, Mr. Forbes?
No, look, Your Worship, there's just one little point that I didn't allude to, but I think it's important to this application. So at the end of the letter from Mel's, they indicate if they're asking for reconsideration, that they're asking that if it gets out to a public hearing for deliberations, they would willingly allow the property to be downzoned from MUC to parking. Now, the question is, the first issue is they have to have a reconsideration and you have to decide to have a public meeting. But if you were to have a public meeting, you would be able, as a part of that public meeting and the discussion, when it comes back for the final decision, the resolution tonight is talking about the MUC zone, but you folks could change those final resolutions to indicate to the parking zone. But the key thing tonight is not to get into the rezoning. Does it deserve the merits under the reconsideration process? That can come later, but I just thought I would indicate that is available to you if you go to a public meeting, and that's what, if you're heading the direction that you think you might like to approve it, the Mel's letter does telegraph that he's not opposed to that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Public meeting, okay. Could I go with Councillor McCabe, Councillor Yankoff first? She had her hand up.
Sure.
Councillor Yankoff, there's some difficulty with some people listening or can't. Could you please stand up? And that way, and speak loud and clear.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Forbes, for your presentation. I will support the reconsideration this evening, which is the only thing I'm supporting this evening, which does not mean that in the long run, depending on how the process goes, how I will support this, whether or not we support the complete project of Mr. McIsaac's. However, I am a firm believer that the process was flawed and that we did get new information, specifically that I was under the impression that the roundabout would proceed whether or not we approved or didn't approve Mr. McIsaac's application. And the idea too of a reconsideration gives us that additional time to address the very, very important concerns of the residents of Angus Drive. And I would hope that we can come up with a very supportive way to support their needs as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hickok. Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I will be supporting the reconsideration also, and as I said, I missed the first meeting, and the second meeting I was here and I was trying to craft it, and that's when it looked like the province had a few more information bits for us at the second one. So as I said to some people, I would really like the province to make sure they have all their ducks in a row and all their information if we're going to go back to another public meeting, and let the residents know for sure of how this is going to work, because right now, like, I'm sort of still confused a bit. If the roundabout's not going to go, or are they still going to run the medium right up the middle of St. Peter's Road? Like, there's a lot of unknowns, and they got to make sure they have all their facts straight before they meet with everybody again, because nobody's having a meeting the next month also and say, well, we missed this, or we missed that, and why it's, and once again, it's the province's road, and we're wearing it.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. And I think that point's where I'd start, is that this is the province's road and a province project. And I feel that the residents of Angus Drive and surrounding areas shouldn't have to continually be impacted by poor communication, not enough information. You know, as a council, we voted 8-1 against the application. We did hear about safety at the public meeting. We did hear about concerns regarding as far as taking the roundabout and not going to put that in. The safety concerns are not necessarily just with the highway. The safety concerns are with actually Mel's convenience store. It's a very, very busy spot. A roundabout's not going to fix the solution that's going on in there, other than there'll be just more. There was 70 cars there last Friday night in a matter of 20 minutes, with cars ripping in and out. The other night I was there, it was raining on Thursday night, and there was 20 people in 4 minutes that my husband was in the store, coming in and out. So the province has a bigger issue than whether or not we're going to put an access road onto Angus Drive or not. They have to deal with the fact that Mel's is a very busy store. You know, if this goes again for reconsideration, because people feel that that's the best solution, we definitely have to have the public meeting. There definitely cannot be commercial zoning. Because it's busy enough. But I do feel, again, that there's been an awful lot of presumptions with this application, and once we voted as an 8-1, all of a sudden they're going to pack up and change their project as a result of not access onto Angus Drive. I'm not supporting consideration.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor. I always say thank you. Councillor Bernard, did you want to say something?
Thank you. And I hear Councillor McCabe, and it's true, there's a lot of traffic that goes to Mel's, which is why the province wants to do what they want to do. They want to control access to it, because it's getting very dangerous. It is dangerous. I know as councillor of the area, I've raised 3 kids there, lived there for over 30 years. Always been dangerous. Didn't want the kids going to Mel's when it was 2-lane. There's no crosswalk around. The province wouldn't put one in because of the nature of the street. They found it too risky. When it came here the first time, I'm glad in Alex's preamble, because I believe we all kind of figured, okay, you know what, they may not need this back road, but the roundabout is going to go. It's going to be a controlled access. And then when they came in and made their presentation and said why, well, that's no information, and I think they have to let the public hear the information. Now it's not just about Angus Road, it's about all of East Royalty. And if the province, and they put it in publicly, they're not building it if if they don't get access or there's not another way to get traffic out. Now, is there other options? Like this question's been asked about a possible lighted intersection there. Well, you know, that's an option the province should let the residents know. So having this public meeting where it all gets explained again, we all know where we sit. Because to tell you, if there's going to be a curb go up from Open Drive roundabout up to McWilliams, there's going to be more traffic. It's not just going to be Angus Drive anymore. It's all the residential streets on both sides of the road. Because you won't be able to get out. So they're going to be racing down residential streets to go to either one, because there's only going to be one at each end. So, I mean, I'm not sure what council's going to look at the end of the day, boys, but something needs to be done at that intersection. And this has been working with the province for years. And I recall when Robert Vesey was the minister, whenever subdivision across, Handmax subdivision across from Mel's getting started, there's still only one entrance and one exit to get onto St. Peter's Road. And even back then, they said whenever the subdivision got to the second and third roads, that they would be looking to put a roundabout in. So this had been planned for a while. So the 8-1 vote that we talked about, I don't know if anybody in this room knew the possibility that there wasn't going to be a roundabout put in. And is the roundabout the answer? Those are questions that we can ask when we have the reconsideration meeting and everything's put out on the floor and all the residents in East Rawley will get to hear. All the ones that want to go, because now it impacts all of East Rawley. So yes, I'll be definitely in favor of reconsideration, because I think it's criminal to not get that information. Now, people need to know what the issues are. So for that reason, I will be voting in favor of it. And it's interesting, one of the issues I think some of us voted also against it was the application that looked for that area to be commercial. So it's interesting, you know, the conversation come up with the possibility of making that area parking. So it's zoned to parking. Again, that's another positive, because I think that was some of the fear from people in the Angus Drive area was another commercial, you know, in a residential area. So that again is positive. But I think it's very important that we go to another public meeting and everyone's questions answered. And then we can make a decision based on the facts. Okay. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Bernard. Councillor Twill.
I guess over the years, people in Angus Drive had to come to City Council via public meetings and had to work collectively as a community to state unequivocally they wanted to maintain the quality of life that currently exists now. The quality of life that currently exists now. That means no entrance and exit on Angus Drive. Nothing's changed. People that are directly impacted by this request for reconsideration are the same people that said no 4 weeks ago, 4 years ago. The last number of 14 to 15 years. No one here has mentioned what is the impact and effect of property values. There's a strong feeling in that community that if the access road onto Angus Drive and exit onto Angus Drive is that the property values are going to diminish, probably cut in half. There's people out in that community, on that street, have invested thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So my question is, before we go into a reconsideration, is there going to be a compensation package? You know, we're all about transparency and openness and wanting to make sure we make the right decisions, and we want to do this for the community and for the benefit of the community. So the question I have here tonight is there going to be a compensation package? Whether you live at on St. Peter's Road, there's a lady that lives in St. Peter's Road, 50 years. Roundabout's going to take place, be constructed right on top of her property. What happens to her property values Who compensates that constituent that's lived in St. Peter's Road for 50 years? Who compensates her? Who compensates the people who live in Angus Drive? I know a couple who lived on Angus Drive 47 years. Take pride in their property, made investments in their property, and who compensates them? Who compensates the lady next door that's raising 3 children, goes to work every day, and does renovations to her property? And on and on and on. I've heard it said that, well, it's only a handful of people on Angus Drive that it affects. Well, you know what? Nothing could be further from the truth. We received a petition prior to the 5-4 vote, over 100 names. So whether you live down near Malcolm Dare Center or anywhere through that community, of people are opposed, dramatically opposed. Nothing's changed. No one in that community wants the access and exit onto Angus Drive coming from Nelson. That is clear. That message is loud and clear. Why do residents have to continue to have to come back time in and time again? Why are we putting these people through this heartache, this anxiety, the emotional roller coaster? People are upset. People in this community are upset. Some of them couldn't even come here tonight because they're that upset. These are lifelong residents, hard-working taxpayers. But what are we doing? We're going to run them through the ringer again. Nothing's changed, folks. If the province wants to put a roundabout on Angus and St. Peter's Road, that's their prerogative. It's got nothing to do with the request from Mr. McIsaac for the reconsideration for the entrance and exit onto Angus Drive. It's 2 separate issues. And furthermore, the residents were never notified that if you don't get this, you can't have that. Why does it have to be winners and losers in this kind of a proposition? Why? Why does it have to be winners and losers? All these people want to do is protect their quality of life. It's our job to help protect, preserve, and enhance. Protect, preserve, and enhance their quality of life. They don't want the traffic. They don't want their property values diminished in any which way, shape, or form. They're not interested in another public meeting. How many times do they got to come to public meetings to state once again unequivocally they're not in favor? Why can't we leave these people alone and let them get on with their lives? Haven't we tortured them enough?
Thank you, Councillor Twill. Councillor,
Worship, just on the...
did you want to make a response to something he said?
Just a comment.
Yes.
It may be helpful, it may not make any difference, but the point about compensation that Councillor Twill raised is, if it's possible that the affected residents may have a claim for what's called injurious affection.
With who?
With the province.
Oh.
That's a possible option they have, and it may or may not be worth their while to pursue, but it's a discussion they may want to have.
Thank you. Councillor Twill, can I just, no, I know, but can we come back? We're in a timeline.
Yeah, I understand.
Did you want a quick response?
Yeah, but the solicitor raised an excellent point.
Yeah.
I want questions.
Take 1 minute because we want to keep moving here.
Yeah, I understand that.
Councillor Duffy,
Yeah.
he's ready, right,
Yeah.
Councillor Duffy?
So, Mr. Hooley, you talked about the province and that mechanism to compensate the residents, but we're going to, if council makes a decision to proceed with changing the zoning, that's what this issue is, it's a zoning issue. If we proceed to change the zoning on Angus Drive, then the onus, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the onus and responsibility would be with city council, not the province.
Point of order.
It's not the province.
Stand up, your point of order. What's your point of order?
I don't think there's anything we talk about changing any zoning.
No, we're not changing the zoning in Angus Drive?
No, we're talking about going to a
Public
reconsideration.
I understand
I know,
that, but
good
the
point.
solicitor, I brought up the
Yeah.
compensation issue,
No.
and the solicitor responded, so I wanted to further discussion with the solicitor.
Okay,
So the question becomes, who's the onus on? Is it on city council? If we change the zoning, I mean, the residents have to know if they're gonna go to a public meeting, They have to know what all the cards are gonna say.
Thanks, Councillor Twill. Can you answer that, Mr. Hooley?
I can't answer it tonight, I just, I'm making a casual observation.
Thank
okay,
you.
As to a possible recourse.
Can you follow up, maybe,
We can look into that. if
and
that's
can you
appropriate.
communicate that with Mr. Kelly or Mr. Forbes, please? Okay, Councillor Duffy, sorry, but that,
Yeah, no problem.
did you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'll be short. I just want to say that we all heard the reference to the 8-1 vote. We all heard reference to that. Now, I'm the one that voted for it in the past, and I'm not changing my position. Thank you, Worship.
Okay. Question? Question called?
Yeah.
Question called.
Questions?
Okay, all those in favor of going to a second, that's what it is, a reconsideration to go to a second public consultation, correct? Please put up your hand. Okay, so I have to read them out. Councillor McLeod, Councillor Yankoff, Councillor Rivard, Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Bernard. Supported. Councillor Duran, yay or nay?
Nay.
Okay, so Councillor Duran is nay. Councillor Twill, nay.
Nay.
Nay. Councillor McCabe?
Nay.
Nay. Am I missing anyone? No. So the carry 6-3, just let me finish. It's 6-3 to go to reconsideration for a public hearing. Correct? Got
You know
it?
what, I'm surprised that we wouldn't all agree. We're always talking about being open and transparency and going
And
to
getting more
public
information.
meetings. So, I'd be surprised we don't want to go to a public meeting, but anyway, yeah.
Councillor Twill, we have to move on this because we have a call.
I understand.
Just quick, one final point.
Okay, please tell me, is the process going to be short-circuited when it comes to the time frame when notices go out to the affected residents within 100 meters? Is it going to be the same as every other planning issue where they get 2 weeks? Or are you going to short-circuit the process?
Your worship, it's the same process that we've.
So same time frame?
Same time frame. That you can't make the rezoning process any faster. It's all prescribed as to how it all works. So that's up to, that's up to you if you want to start the meeting later.
No,
But,
thank you. That it?
Yep.
You're all right with that, Councillor Duffy?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Hooley, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Forbes, thank you, Mr. Forbes.
Same floor.
So, Mr.
Now, did you want to bring in the enterprise people?
There's some
You're doing
technical
that.
things going on, Your Worship, so you want to, while we're waiting to change over one for the other, Your Worship.
So it is the resolution, utility resolution in regards to additional material management, East Royalty Lagoon.
Your Worship.
Want to read it?
By Councillor.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just going to go give him a call and get him back on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Good.
Sorry.
We're dealing with the resolution on East Royalty sewage lagoon. Go ahead, sir.
Your Worship, moved by Councillor Duran, second by Deputy Mayor Cody. Whereas the City of Charlottetown awarded the tender for the East Royalty Lagoon decommissioning in the amount of $884,700 plus HST on September 9th, 2019 to Island Coastal Services. And additional fill amount can be completed to improve the site. Be it resolved that the contract value for the ICS, which is Island Coastal Services, be increased by $225,000 plus HST, and the engineering oversight contract with WSP be increased by $25,000 plus HST to cover the costs associated with the additional material management version.
Councillor Bernard, this is good news.
Yeah, you know what?
Did you want to say something?
Well, as Councillor Duran was saying, it's his committee.
Okay, Councillor Duran is Chair of Water and Wastewater. I didn't call it sewer. Go ahead there, Councillor. Did you want to say anything, Councillor Duran?
No, it's great, thank you.
Okay. Take the floor. for the council from the area.
Just your worship, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew, it's not new money. This was talked about in the capital budget. The better news, I guess, is all the fill ended up being for $5 cubic ton, bringing there. So there was talk at one time about leaving it about 15 to 20 feet drop. So during our budget consultations, there was money included to fill the lagoon properly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to make sure everything was not new money, it's part of the budget.
Well, as I said, we're finally filling in Bernard's hole. But it is good news, because you know what? It takes that lagoon out of there, and everything is now directed to Riverside Drive.
Treatment plan, and it's 4 acres of green space that we can use for the city Charlottesville for their city parks.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Question?
Question call.
Question call. All those in favor, please put up your hand. Councilor Durant?
In favor.
10-0. That's an easy one. Okay. Speak, please.
Yes, I will.
Okay, we're ready to go.
You ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we have to get moving.
So tonight we're doing a presentation from Enterprise Fleet Management. We connected with them probably last fall sometime, and throughout the last few months we've been trying to put together a package here to present to both management and council as far as managing our fleet. So this is John Stewart. He's the account executive with Enterprise Fleet Management. Beta Fernandez and I have been working with him for 6 months or so, putting a package together, our fleet lists and whatnot, to see what we have currently in our fleet. And so they've done some analysis and put together a package as far as managing our fleet for us. Now this covers everything from the small half tons right up to the 1 ton trucks. Anything larger than that is not included, nor does it include police vehicles, nor fire. So just want you to be aware of that. So anyway, this is John Stewart. He's our account executive. So I'll hand things off to him and let him make this presentation once again.
Okay.
Great.
Hi.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate everyone's time here this evening, and hopefully you can all hear me well.
Yeah.
So, as Stephen had alluded to, over the past 6 months or so, Stephen, Beta, myself, a couple members of the Enterprise Fleet team have been connecting, getting together to talk about the fleet at the City of Charlottetown and discuss areas of opportunity. Really where there might be potential cost savings for the city at large and within each department. So today what I'd like to do is really walk you through what that proposal looks like and really give you an idea of what a partnership with Enterprise Fleet Management would look like for the City of Charlottetown. To start off, what I'd like to do is more of a housekeeping piece. You know, obviously it's very tough to do this via web conference. I wish I was there in person, but we all know that's just not possible. So maybe what we can do is hold the questions until the end, and don't hesitate to ask away at that point. So I'm sure you're all familiar with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Most people are. So we are the sister company of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. We currently own and operate over 2.3 million vehicles of our own, as well as we help to manage over 500,000 fleet vehicles for organizations who manage vehicles just prior to working with us, just the way the City of Charlottetown does. So that being said, I mean, managing vehicles is just all that we do. So we're usually able to find strategic ways to help organizations save money in how they operate their fleet or find operational efficiencies. So moving more towards the government space, we currently are working with over 1,600 government entities across North America and helping them manage their vehicles. And operationally, what we do is on the left-hand side of your screen here, you'll see a wheel with red bullet points and green bullet points on the other side. What we do for our clients to help drive down costs across the fleet, well, first, we help with the procurement side. So we help with buying vehicles at the lowest total cost of ownership. The next thing we do is we help with funding to help lower cash flow from the procurement side of buying vehicles. But most importantly, what we like to focus on, for specifically our government clients, is finding the right time to get out of vehicles. So basically, what makes the most financial sense based on the type of vehicle, the vehicle application that can really help maximize the amount of equity coming back to the city. So to help paint more of a picture of that, on the acquisition side of things, so that first red bullet point at the top of that wheel, as a government entity, you're entitled to the best possible buying price of vehicles. We're going to capitalize on that and really show you how you can lower your spend over time by harvesting that equity that you get from that incredible buy on the front end. On the funding portion, we utilize what's called an open-end equity lease. And what that means for you is that there's no mileage penalty, there's no wear and tear provision, and there's no early termination fee. So at the end of the term, the hold period, all the equity based on the difference between the market value of the vehicle and what it's on the books for with Enterprise, all that equity is returned back to the city. Now, the majority of our clients, what they'll do is actually take those funds and use them to fund the future replacement vehicles. That way, it's thus lowering the overall fleet cost over time. But most importantly, what we're looking at is the retail component. So finding not only the right time for those vehicles, but which avenue to market vehicles through. So that will vary by vehicle type. We'll talk a little bit about, the right cycle. When we look at some of the modeling, it's worked into some of the modeling to give you an idea of the difference of cost savings that we'll be able to bring to the table. But Stephen and Dana have reviewed this information with us quite extensively, and we've identified which vehicles should be cycled at and at what point based off, what the vehicle is and what it's being used for. Operationally, the benefits of shortening a vehicle cycle, well, inherently your maintenance costs are going to go down, your fuel costs are going to go down with newer, more fuel-efficient vehicles, and vehicle downtime will also go down. So overall, the impact operationally is pretty extensive when you look at shortening a vehicle cycle. So other areas on this wheel, so to speak, that are highlighted in green, those bullet points, those are other areas that we're able to help our municipal clients with. But that being said, we're not going to spend too much time in these areas, but if there are any of these areas that you'd like to ask questions on, please don't hesitate. I'm more than happy to walk through them with you. So overall, we look at a number of cities and municipalities really across North America, but these specific ones on the slide here are across Canada. We specifically won the RFP tender for the Affinity Partnership to be a sole fleet management provider for Sourcewell, which is a procurement cooperative for government entities. Through that, we work specifically in Ontario with LAS, and LAS is sister organization, the Federation of Prince Edward Island Municipalities. And again, we work with across North America, again, over 1,600 government entities. So overall, here's the philosophy of how Enterprise approaches vehicle management. Not only for our clients who, the 500,000 plus vehicles that we help manage across North America of our clients' own vehicles, but also for our vehicles, our 2.3 million rental vehicles that we operate ourselves. Our goal is to find the lowest possible cost for a vehicle using the three main cost buckets between depreciation, fuel, and maintenance. Now, in particular, what we find is the biggest area of focus for our government clients is typically depreciation because, well, twofold. We've got a really low utilization, meaning a low average kilometer, annual kilometer mileage pattern, based off the type of driving that these vehicles are being used for. And that coupled with, again, your strong buy on the front end of acquiring vehicles just creates really a rich equity product at the end of a set hold period. So to give you an idea of what this philosophy would look like for your fleet of light-duty vehicles across the city of Charlottetown, a lot of numbers here. I'll quickly high-level go over. This is the fleet profile. This is basically taking a look in a number of different ways of how the fleet looks in the city today. So starting in the top left-hand corner, depending how big the screen is that you're looking at, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but the vehicle profile breaks down vehicles first by type. So we break it down to get an understanding of all the different vehicle classes that you're operating today in the fleet, the number within each vehicle type, the average age in years within each vehicle type. 8.8 is the average age across the fleet today. Average annual mileage pattern tells us the average annual kilometers that you're putting on your vehicles every year based off class. And then we look at that across the fleet is roughly 13,600 kilometers. The next table over, that's our fleet replacement schedule. So that gives us an idea of what it would look like to replace vehicles through Enterprise according to a few different areas of criteria. On the far right-hand side, the replacement criteria is as follows. In the first year, we would look to target and replace any vehicle that's over 10 model years of age or an odometer of over 160,000 kilometers. And the reason we're targeting those vehicles is that those are the vehicles that are costing you the most to operate today, from a maintenance standpoint and from a fuel standpoint. The following year, we would recommend any vehicle over 8 years, following year 4 years, and then in the fifth year, it would be the remaining vehicles in the fleet. So So that's how we got to our fleet replacement schedule and where these numbers come from, is just by the age and the odometer. The underutilized column, well, we don't have any vehicles there because we don't have any vehicles that we would say that are being underutilized. And what we mean by that is any vehicle that's going less than 4,000 kilometers on average per year. So at the very bottom, we have the model year analysis, and what that indicates to us, well, there's a few things that we can pull from this analysis. Well, we know that according to this analysis, you have 27 vehicles that are over 10 model years of age. So 47% of your fleet today of light-duty vehicles is over 10 years. We can also tell your average acquisition trends. So on average, what we can tell over the past 5 years is that you acquired 4.8 vehicles a year. So this allows us to really get a true tell of what you're spending today from an operating and capital cost standpoint to compare that to what it looks like with enterprise. So the next step to this conversation, to this equation, is understanding how much the fleet is costing you today, and then we want to benchmark that and compare that to what a recommendation to enterprise would look like and what a partner enterprise would look like. So what we did was we took this fleet replacement schedule that we just talked about, using that same replacement criteria, and we wanted to show you year over year, over a 10-year period, what kind of impact a replacement schedule would look like for the city of Charlottetown across your fleet of light-duty vehicles. Now, before we go to the next slide, I know Stephen has shared the information packet with all of you, from what I understand. I'm not sure how many of you have read it, but that being said, there are a lot of numbers, and high level, what we're doing is looking at the information that Stephen has shared with your maintenance costs, understanding the fuel economy and the average mileage pattern on your vehicles. We're able to back into what your fuel cost is across the fleet, and with the understanding of how many vehicles you acquire per year and the types of vehicles using government incentives, you're able to get a good understanding of your benchmark fleet costs on average. So to compare that to what the trend forecast would be over 10 years with enterprise, before diving into these numbers, the gray table on the top, well, what that table tells us is, again, the information that we know about the fleet today. We know you have 61 vehicles. We're not assuming fleet growth. We're not looking to see the fleet size or to stay at 61 on the enterprise platform. We're currently cycling vehicle load on an average of 12 years, 12.71 years. And again, your average mileage pattern is 13,600 kilometers. So we're showing your current fleet spend and comparing that to cycling vehicle load at 5 years on the enterprise platform as opposed to cycling vehicle load at 12.71 years. Your current maintenance spend of $150 per month, that was information that Stephen had shared from the past 12 months of managing your fleet. And your liters per 100 kilometers across the fleet is 21, across the types of vehicles that you're operating. We're assuming a pump price of $1 per liter. And the proposed maintenance on the enterprise program is a fixed cost at $66.58 per month. So when we look at this, I can go high level. I'll keep it high level unless you'd like to get granular and go line by line, because I know for some of you in the room, you've seen this analysis probably a couple times now. But the yellow banner indicates really what your average spend is today across the fleet. So your average of 61 vehicles, acquiring 4.8 vehicles a year. Owning 61 vehicles, you're not leasing any on the enterprise platform. So every year you're spending on average close to $158,579 based off your average acquisition price on 4.8 vehicles. We're assuming that you're actually selling your vehicles at the end of the whole period or the end of the 12.71 years for an average of $2,000 per vehicle. That's being very conservative. At the end of 12, almost 13 years, most vehicles won't be worth $2,000. Your maintenance spend across the fleet last year of these particular trucks and vehicles was $109,800, and your fuel spend is benchmarked at $174,216, giving us a total fleet budget of $432,995. So that's what we're comparing this to year over year, is at $432,995. So I'll go through year one, and then the rest is just quick math that plays out to give us our total 10-year savings. So in year one, you'll recall from the last slide, it was 29 vehicles, replacing all the vehicles over 10 model years of age or 160,000 kilometers in the odometer. So we're showing an annual need as replacing 29 vehicles on the enterprise platform. That leaves 32 vehicles of the 61 that you currently own, 29 that are leased through enterprise on an open-end equity lease. You don't have to purchase any vehicles, so the purchase column stays at zero, and the lease column is $183,081 for the lease of 29 vehicles. Now, of those 29 vehicles that we're recommending you replace, some aren't worth much, but some still have some equity in them. When we take the total of the Canadian Black Book value minus 20% to be conservative, those vehicles are worth roughly $168,500. That's equity that the city of Charlottetown owns in those vehicles, so certainly that's cash coming right back to the city. The maintenance, when we look at a blended average between the enterprise maintenance on your 29 new vehicles and your existing maintenance costs on your 32 vehicles that you're not replacing, that plays out to $80,000, just over $80,000, $80,803. And fuel comes down to $157,651. More fuel-efficient vehicles, coupled with your average mileage patterns and a pump price of $1. So when we add it all up, your fleet budget plays out to $253,035. So when we compare that to your current fleet budget of $432, the difference of $179,960 is savings to the city in the first year. Now the rest of the model plays out the same. The only difference is that you'll see that obviously on the enterprise platform we're increasing the number of vehicles, whereas the owned column goes down. You'll see that the maintenance starts to go down as that blended average goes towards the enterprise fixed maintenance costs, and your fuel economy continues to get better over time until it flatlines when we cycled out the entire fleet. When we compare the net cash, the difference between every year the enterprise platform and your current average budget, we add it all up, that gives us a total savings over 10 years of $894,963. The average sustainable savings of $33,976 is a projected average annual savings once you're fully integrated into the enterprise program, meaning that all of your current vehicles that you have in your fleet today have been cycled out and being replaced with enterprise vehicles. That $33,976 tells us effectively what the difference is then versus your average spend today annually. So this is again a 5-year cycle. The next step is looking at, well, if we want to get an understanding of based off of what enterprise would recommend, based off how your vehicles are used, the types of vehicles that you're acquiring, and your average mileage patterns, the type of equipment that's being installed on these vehicles, well, we made recommendations per vehicle class on how long they should be held for. So the next analysis, I mean, again, I don't have to get too granular in the numbers on this one because the math still plays out the same, but the key difference is that instead of waiting for 5 years to harvest the equity in your enterprise vehicles, well, you're doing it in year one with the equity leased column here. So after year one, we're cycling out a portion of the half-ton truck that, quite frankly, have very little aftermarket equipment, have very little mileage pattern, and have a lot of equity, a lot of market value at the end of 1 year. So it makes more sense financially for those particular vehicles to be cycled out in year one. Meanwhile, there's some other vehicles that the recommendation is a 2-year hold, a 3-year hold, a 4-year hold, and a 5-year hold. So that's all played into this analysis. And you'll see that by really harvesting that equity sooner, over a 10-year period, the savings bumps up pretty dramatically up to $1,800,492 in this model. So average sustainable savings annually compared to the current fleet budget of $134,717, again, once the fleet is rolled over completely onto the enterprise platform. Now, lots of numbers here. Again, I know some of you have seen them before, so it's probably a little clearer for those of you who have seen it before, but that's overall what I wanted to review with you from a model standpoint. Are there any questions at this point as it relates to the modeling or the program at large?
So we're going to open it up for questions. I know, that- any questions? Go right ahead, sir. Just,
Thank you very much for your presentation, very detailed. Looking into the future electricity-wise, where do you see the city being through the leasing program with electric vehicles?
Yeah, that is probably the hottest topic right now, so thank you for asking that question. The EV technology and news is changing what I feel like is daily. We have a team that connects with us weekly from our corporate office to keep us up to date on what's happening in the EV space. Now, currently, based off of the technology, the range isn't that great in some EV type vehicles. Typically, it's more of a political decision to get into the EV space. There are no work trucks out there yet. Ford is coming out in the next model year with the half-ton pickup truck, fully electric half-ton pickup truck. In this coming model year, we do have the Ford Transit, the E-Transit, so basically the electric version of a cargo van. So as things change, it is constantly evolving on our side as well. We do have access to EV vehicles. It's just always going to come down to a few main questions. Infrastructure is one of them. Cost is another. Future resale value is another. Range is a big hot topic as well, mainly because the range on these trucks, depending on what they're going to be used for, is relatively a lot lower than an ICE vehicle. So if the range is lower and it takes hours to recharge a battery relative to going to a gas station and filling up. So it just all depends on what fits the application. But it is something that we are on top of in weekly meetings.
Thank you very much.
thank you. All right, Councilor Bernard, question?
Yeah, I just have one.
Just speak loud so he can hear.
Pardon me?
Just speak loud so he can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, to hear, Councillor.
Just wondering, just on that, most of these numbers that you did on the depreciation and the calculations, were they done all on gas vehicles?
That is correct. These are all on gas vehicles.
So is there much depreciation on an EV, electric vehicle? So does this,
So as of
these
today-
calculations all really change, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, also, thank you for asking that question. We can work the EV side of things into the equation once we have more information on them. So this analysis is not built on EV pricing.
Right.
So EV pricing is going to be higher. There's going to be less incentives from manufacturers as it relates to government incentives. We know that for a fact. We also know that from a remarketing standpoint, as the technology in EVs continues to change, the remarketing side of vehicles is going to be different from the regular ICE vehicles that we're looking at here. So that being said, the whole period that we would recommend for an EV would be probably a little bit longer than your average half-ton regular engine pickup truck that we're talking about here in this model.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No
Get another
problem.
question there, Councilman?
Yeah,
Go right ahead.
Thank you very much.
You got your second question too.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly's keeping us to that.
What would be your argument for with us leasing, like, some of the questions that council will probably get hit with is, are we still supporting the local economy? What happens to the Reliable Motors and the Hillside Motors, companies in Ford and so on, Ford and those companies. So what's our play there? How do we answer those questions?
Looks like he's frozen.
I think he froze. Didn't like the question.
Turned you off.
Councillor,
So I'm not going to listen to you anymore.
that particular question was answered on the summary in the package that I provided.
I asked it.
So it is in there.
Yes, it's right on the front page. We still order these factory through the local dealerships.
Okay, cool.
So
Yeah.
they still get their cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Steve, they don't do, Reliable and Fairfield Ford will not be doing the bidding. Enterprise will be saying, you pick up your
Yes,
vehicle.
Enterprise will be ordering through the
Yeah.
dealership.
So just,
But they will be ordered through these companies, or
Yes,
are they?
so when delivery comes, they would be the same as if we walk in and did a factory order. They don't get as much of a markup.
No.
As buying something off the lot.
Yeah, of
but
course.
They still get their cut.
So it looks like we're disconnected, Rich. I don't know if they're going to try to get back in again.
well, he's on Toronto time. He's at 20 to 6. Okay.
It looks like we lost them.
Probably having supper.
So if you,
I think you were the last question, correct?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get a question.
You're all right there, Councillor Duff. You saw this presentation.
Yes, yeah.
So did Councillor Ramsey, you saw it?
Yes, I did.
Councillor Rivard?
And I asked the same,
Yeah.
the same question, Councillor, you know, the kickback or the pushback we're gonna get.
Yeah.
Since we're getting that.
Yep, we're gonna go.
Sure.
Yes?
I'm just wondering, just as a point of clarification, if we still have quite a few things on our agenda, and I know we have a presenter waiting to go again, are we going to actually be able to fully get into the affordable housing initiative strategy this evening in fair concentration?
Well, we can do it next Monday.
But I just don't think he should.
You wanna do
sit
it
in
next
there.
Monday?
He's in there waiting. I think.
Yeah, you know what,
It's
send,
just too important a topic.
you don't mind there, Mike? Can you just tell him?
Is that
and
okay?
even the closed session.
Next Monday, eh?
Do you wanna leave the closed session till,
Do it next week or something.
Next Monday as well. Yeah, just if we're going to.
Are we still live?
Attention.
Yes.
okay. I was gonna say.
Thank you.
Send him home for bringing it.
Yeah,
Thank, Councillor McKay, thank you for that suggestion.
sorry, thank you. I just love that, you know.
We're gonna give all the time to Mr. Garrity. Tim Garrity.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight. I'm Tim Garrity, the Chief Electoral Officer for Prince Edward Island. This is my deputy, Stephanie Thorpe. So we're just here to answer some questions, and I'll kind of go through a little bit of a spiel here to start, and we have a couple of slides to go through, and then basically I'll open it up for any questions or comments or anything that you guys want clarification on. But I'll start out with, at Elections PEI, our official mandate is not running municipal elections. It's actually the provincial elections and the school board elections is what our mandate is. And we are historically been contracted by 4 large municipalities, now 5, Three Rivers has joined into that, for us to run their elections on their behalf. Essentially, contract us, we run the elections, we send you guys a bill, and we do it in a very fiscally responsible manner. Prior to the 2018 municipal elections, we had a meeting with the CAOs from the 4 largest municipalities. There was a little bit of talk about the possibility of online voting, but the timelines didn't really work out to be able to do anything for it for the 2018 elections. It was just, what are the possibilities? Some other jurisdictions are looking at it. So after the 2018 elections, we had another follow-up meeting with the CAOs. It was talked about to say, all right, what are the possibilities about online voting for the 2022? So at Elections PEI, we did a little bit of the legwork in the background to say, okay, basically, what would the timelines be and what would a rough cost analysis be to bring this in for the 4, now 5 largest municipalities? And we don't really have a stake in this game at all. We basically we will consider ourselves to be the experts in elections here on PEI. We will offer professional opinion, but really as to whether or not online voting should be brought in, it's not really for us to say. We can kind of say about the integrity of the election, the security that's there, the accessibility that it brings, and things like that, some of the benefits around it. But the decision essentially is up to the councils. Now, what we have asked for is, because this is 50% of Elections PEI right here in front of you, so we have a large office, and we need a consensus amongst the 5 municipalities in order to move forward. We need you guys to all agree, yes or no online voting, and then we would like an agreement on if there is a reduction in advance voting days in person, because there's going to be an online voting period, that it would be the same, so that all of the municipalities would be run similar. Because for us, again, when we're running them, it's essentially running 5 separate elections with 4 people in our office. So it's very challenging to do. There are some different bylaws. We have the geographical differences. There are differences as they are, with Cornwall being open ward, Stratford and now Three Rivers being 2 councillors per ward. So there are some differences that we need to deal with just kind of internally ourselves. So we're asking for some consensus around this model. So we'll kind of go through a little bit of what we're talking about on the online. And some of these timelines, what we presented to the Cornwall Town Council 2 weeks ago, I think, on the 12th. And they asked us to come out, very similar, do a little bit of a presentation, answer some of the questions. What we told them is we would like to have a formal decision from all of the councils by the 1st of July. And that will allow us to move forward. We need to move forward with an RFP process. And then we have to start working with a vendor in order to get ready for the 2022 elections. November 2022 is really not that far away in our eyes. We don't know what else is going to happen between now and then, if there are any by-elections, anything that comes up. We also are planning for the school board elections, which right now are scheduled to be in May of 2022, so we have to run those as well. There could be some changes to that, but we're bringing back the English school board election, so that's going to be different for our office. So in order to get things started, as you can see here, we really need to have a company chosen, work with them to be able to start this project in October of this year, which again, being June 1st essentially, is not that far away. Summer months, things take a little bit longer, and if we need to go through this RFP process and do it properly, we just need the time to make those decisions. So you can kind of see that timelines are a little bit important to us. This kind of goes through a little bit of the information as to what we would be doing and when. I don't know that we need to get into all the details of it right now, but you can see there's a lot of work that has to take place in order to pull this off. Not only, this is just a portion of what we're doing. We still have to run the full municipal election as well. There still will be in-person voting. At minimum, the Municipal Government Act says there has to be 1 advance day and election day voting. So we still have to deal with all the HR around that, with all of the logistics and planning that comes with that as well. So this just, it just eats up some more time for us. Under the Municipal Government Act, there are requirements for bylaws if you are to bring in online voting as an option. It is allowed under the Municipal Government Act, but you're not able to do it until we choose a vendor. Because there are security specs that have to be written into the bylaw, and we won't know those until we pick a vendor. Now, of course, any of the vendors, it'll be in the RFP of all the security specs we need them to meet and things like that, but we can't put the cart before the horse. So there are things that need to take place. There will be work that needs to be done, some bylaws that will need to be amended or added in order to make this happen as well. And again, we would like some uniformity on that as well. It would just seem to make sense to everybody to kind of come up with one bylaw that would work for all the municipalities, and I think that's very feasible to do. So right now, we have heard from the other four largest municipalities. The formal decisions have really not yet been made. They've been given the deadline. But they are all in agreement that they think that bringing in online voting is a viable option, knocking out at least one advanced voting day, but they're all open to negotiation, so to speak, on that side of it. And I think that's a very viable option. For Charlottetown, each advanced voting day, roughly, and these are rough figures, is between $32,000 and $35,000. So if we added in online voting and took out one advanced voting day, essentially it's the same cost as running the election. The online voting would cost roughly that amount for the Charlottetown portion of that. So that's just something that that is there to consider. Now that's my brief presentation. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any of them that I can. And if you have any further questions or want more information after this, I'm always available by email, or our office is a lovely walk down the block.
Mr. Kelly, did you want to just ask that question? What was that?
Can you just give an overall cost factor of going down this road, please?
Yeah.
That's for the online voting only, right?
Yes, sure. But you have to do online and in person to
Right.
do it. But these are the cost of it.
But he said with the online, we may be able to drop one or two advanced poll days.
So what we have, again, these are just some estimated costs. And
Okay.
November 2022, let's hope and pray that we're not dealing with COVID protocols. But anyhow, things happen. We have to deal with things as we do. These costs are based on the 2018 costs with some inflation, some increase in the wages because, of course, minimum wage increases, things like that. So our estimated cost for the 2022 election for the city of Charlottetown without online voting, so this is the normal election, the way that you've always run it with 3 advanced days, an election day, and a mail-in ballot process, would be around $190,000.
And that's without?
That's no online voting. So if you were to do online voting, and if you just were to add online voting, you wanted to say, we want the Cadillac version, throw it all in there, just give us everything, it's around 225, so it's about 35K for the online side.
And that's with 1 or 2 less days?
No, that's with
Every-
3 days and election day and online voting.
Yeah.
That's the, like I said, that's the deluxe model.
225,000.
So if you knock out one, you're down to around 192,000. So if you look at no online voting, regular election, 190,000. 2 advanced voting days with online, you're around 192 is my estimate as to what we would be. If you knock out and only do 1 advanced voting day, you're down to around 160,000. My professional recommendation on that as to bringing in online voting for the first time around, I don't think I would recommend getting rid of 2 advanced voting days. I think to get rid of 1 of them would be sufficient. The advanced voting days now are on the Saturday, Monday, Friday before the election day. What would probably make sense to work out would be to keep the Saturday, to keep the Friday, but get rid of the Monday. Historically, that's our lowest turnout for the advanced days anyhow. So it would be something to look at. Now, online voting, of course, as we all would know, It helps out with the mail-in ballot process. We have seen a significant increase in the mail-in ballot side of things due to COVID, of course, but that can carry over. People may just like the opportunity to be able to vote from wherever they are. But there are logistical challenges around the mail-in ballot, getting the ballots out to people, making sure they get back on time because there are tight timelines and we're constricted to those. Online voting, we could have that open for a 1 week, 10-day period where essentially what it would be, people would have to apply to vote online. You would need to submit your application. We would review it, we would approve it. We would then send a PIN number to somebody's individual email. They would use a PIN number, and essentially what we're envisioning, again, we'll have to work with the company on this, is a PIN number and a shared secret, it's called. Be that your date of birth or the street you grew up on, or one of those secret questions that you can use. So the combination of those two things would allow you into the online voting portal once it is open. Once the voting period is open, you go in and vote. It marks you as stricken off the list as having voted, and that's it. That's the only opportunity you get to vote. If you go in to try to do it again, it does not happen.
Oh, bells and whistles go off. Okay, Councilor Rivard?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for coming in. So do all 5 municipalities have to agree to this? I missed that to start, or majority?
All 5 have to agree to online voting.
Okay, they do.
Yeah.
So if one decides that they don't want to,
Yeah,
It's
a
on.
no-go.
that's right.
Okay.
It's just not feasible for us to run a whole separate election and then elections with
Okay.
online. It's
Yep.
just not something that our office is able to handle.
The other question I had was around, I know we have a low voter turnout for the municipality versus provincial, federal, whatever. What do you anticipate the numbers, percentage going up to, based on stats that you would have got from other jurisdictions for Charlottetown?
It's a challenge to deal with voter turnout. It's a challenge to answer those questions. I get asked that question a lot as to why was voter turnout the way that it was, and I'll be honest, I just don't have the answer. We can do everything we can to make it as accessible as possible. This would be the easiest way for somebody to vote, and if that's something that we're wanting to look at, it is still safe, it is still secure, but it is an easy way for somebody to be able to vote without having to get off the couch. Literally, they can just do it right then and there. So we would like to see an increased turnout. There could be an engagement with a younger demographic. Halifax did see a little bit of an increase, but it wasn't exponential by any stretch. I'll be very honest, it didn't shoot up. But it's an add-on feature to allow that accessibility factor to let people vote. And it didn't, like I said, some municipalities, it's only online voting. That's the only option they have. There's no in-person voting at all. Yeah. And I think it's Cape Breton Regional Municipality, it's solely online. There's a few municipalities in Ontario, that's it. That's your only opportunity, is online voting. So, you know, it is being looked at, it is being used across the country, but turnout is fickle. It's a real challenge. If somebody, it could be because it's sunny, or it could be because it's rainy, or, there's almost no answer that we can use because we don't know.
And that's what I was hoping to find out is that, the turnout has been low over the years for whatever reasons. What can we anticipate?
Well,
if we're doing the online voting, the people wouldn't have, if it is a rainy day or sunny day, or whatever it may be, they have this great.
They would have the ability to do it. We would like to think that there would be an increased turnout. I mean, we would promote it, we would advertise around it, we would let people know that it's there. The reality as to, can I say it will have a 10% increase? No. It's not something that I'm able to say because unfortunately we just don't know. I mean, some people may have a little bit of an aversion to it, to say it's not something they trust. They've always gone to the polls, they like to go to the poll, they like to do it on the third advance day, it's what they've always done. Other people will be very open to trying the new technology and using it as an opportunity.
Councilor Ramsey?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank
you
you.
very much for your presentation. So it'll only be a 1 week, if everyone agrees with this, there'll only be 1 week that you can do an online voting.
It'll be a 1 week to 10 day because we can't start the voting period until after the nomination period closes. So it's all depending on the timelines, and things are all set out in legislation. If nominations close on the second Friday after the election
Yeah.
starts at 2 PM. Well, we can't start the online voting until after that closes and we officially get all the names on the ballot. So it it would be the largest window we could have it, but we have to follow the legislation, of course.
So would this add into your advanced polls?
Yeah.
This online voting?
The online voting would be counted separately. The online voting would be
So almost like an advanced poll?
Yes, yep, and it would be tallied separately. It would be counted as online voting. That's how it would be reported on.
And one other question with the last, it doesn't have much to do with this, but I was wondering, I meant to ask this 100 times, how come the advanced polls were counted last in 2018?
That is in the Municipal Governments Act.
They have to be counted last?
They cannot be counted until the polls close
At 7 PM.
at 7 PM. In it,
I mean,
provincially.
but they weren't announced till
But see,
last.
on election day, everything is done by poll.
Right.
So just in the recent election, in the Cornwall by-election that we just held, the turnout was low. Municipal by-election, it wasn't very high.
25%.
We had some ballot boxes on election day that had 30 ballots in them. So when you close the poll at 7 o'clock and the workers dump out those, they need to count and report on 30 ballots. But we had 450 people vote in the advance. So that one ballot box has 450 ballots that have to be counted. So they're both started at the same time, but of course it takes a lot longer to count the 450, so those are going to be reported last. We've made recommendations to the Department of Municipal Affairs to change the legislation to mirror the Election Act that says it can be started early on election day. When we do the provincial election, we start counting the advance ballots around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we sequester those people. They're essentially locked in a room until 7 o'clock. But then those results can be announced right at 7 o'clock because they've had 4 hours to count those.
That's what happened with the 2014 municipal elections.
Yes, that was before
Advanced
the.
polls were already in.
That was before the Municipal Governments Act. The Municipal
Yeah,
Government Act,
that
when
was
it was drafted, had the wording that they can't be counted until 7 o'clock.
Yeah, because there's a lot
Early
of,
voting, can't beat that.
a lot of candidates from everywhere basically were sitting on their hands until 11 o'clock at night before the advanced poll, the advance ones were counted, and they're saying, well, I'm here, I'm out. You know, it's like, on 2014, you basically do a graph of it because you have your count in there.
You didn't fall asleep, did you? Waiting for the.
No, I just have another beer down at your headquarters.
I'm just going to speak to that, Councilor Ramsey. So when the Municipal Governments Act was being drafted, and they did consult us with it, the problem is the MGA has been drafted to apply to all of the municipalities across PEI, not just the big four. So for the community of Crapo, Victoria, places like that, that may see maybe 100 people vote in their advance polls, they don't need that extra time to vote. So there has to be certain provisions written in that are going to make an exemption for the big five now with 3 rivers in it. So like Tim said, we did have discussion with municipal affairs. We've made a couple of recommendations, whether they accept them or not. One of them is that we can have it as a place and a time by the MEO, which might be 3 o'clock in the afternoon if we have 500 advance ballots, but it would give you guys the opportunity to be able to get those results right away. And then you would be able to know poll by poll as they come in. You'd be able to see if you have a lead and you'd be able to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happened. They did away with the Charlottetown Area Municipalities Act
Yes.
and the Summerside Act.
Yeah.
Remember that, Councillor Duffy?
I remember well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saw the movie.
Councillor Bernard. Councillor Bernard.
Hey, who's starting?
A couple of questions. I'm just assuming since it's a lot more convenient that the voter turnout would be higher, and to go back to Councillor Rivera's questions, this was done in other jurisdictions, so were there voter turnout higher?
Not significantly, no.
No. Really?
No.
One of the reasons for doing the online voting in the other municipalities, so as Tim spoke to, some of the municipalities in Ontario, so the community of Stratford, Ontario, they do theirs by online voting. They also had telephone voting as well.
Wow.
They did it for accessibility issues. So it's an add-on feature, and what it does is replaces the mail-in ballot. It could replace sometimes going to a mobile poll facility, things like that. So you may not see the first day or the first election, you may not see an advance turnout for online voting. But as we be able to promote and we be able to educate people, they may take advantage of that because they don't have to go wait in lines. They don't have to wait to get their voter card. We could probably email people their PIN number. So you apply, you get approved. It's right away, it's instant. So the communities that do it is for an accessibility piece and not necessarily to increase the turnout. If the turnout increases, that's gravy, but really the consideration is to be able to provide a more accessible route for people who can't get out to the polls.
Right, yeah. And that's why I would think that it would be used more on people in hospitals and so on that can't get out. I think it would be.
Yeah, you would definitely think that it would, and again, we would do our best to promote it in that way, but you know, there's a reality. We make it as accessible and as easy and as quick as we can to let people vote, but people themselves got to show up, online or in person.
That's right.
No, I'm wondering too on the security issues. So how do you know when someone's applying that they actually live when they say they live?
Well, once you apply, the way, now all we have to go on is this. We had a brief conversation with one of the vendors, and it was a vendor that Elections PEI used to do the plebiscite back in 2016. So they did online voting with the plebiscite. So it was something that the office is familiar with.
Yeah.
So we have our list of electors. So when Tim Garrity applies, it goes in, it says, is Tim Garrity on the list, first of all? Yes or no? If not, this route. You need to apply to be on the list, which is a different process. We go through a process ourselves where we engage with that person to make sure they're an eligible elector to be added onto the list of electors. If you're already on the list, you're at that address, voting history has been there, we see everything looks good, then we know you're there. We know you are who you are. You're allowed to go through that process. So the system is intuitive in the background. We have, on our list of electors right now, we have almost 110,000 Islanders who are registered on our list of electors with updated information. And about 97% of our list has driver's license or a voluntary ID. So it's an added piece of information that we can deal with highway safety on to get address updated information. Every time somebody goes in, updates the registration, updates their driver's license, we get that information. So our list is very good.
So how often is it updated?
Our list is monthly.
Wow. Through motor vehicle and taxation?
Motor vehicle, and we get information from Vital Stats. We get all the.
Wow.
Yeah, we get a lot of information from a lot of different areas, and we update our list monthly, and there are hundreds of updates that we do every month.
Because I find that a lot of times when you take a household, you have a number of kids in the household, and those kids get up and move on, but they're still on that list as in that house.
Yeah.
I tell you, the driver's license renewal was sometimes it lasts up to 5 years.
And sometimes with students as well, though, the Municipal Governments Act still has the same provisions as the Election Act. If you're a student, you do have the choice where you want to vote. So you can vote, say you live in Tignish, but you're going to school in Charlottetown. You're not ordinarily resident in the city of Charlottetown. You're just there for school, so you can choose to vote where you live.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that actually move, so anybody who's 25 and under, they don't have a permanent address. They don't have their own home. They'll use mom and dad's address because that's where they're ordinarily resident, and that's what we allow on our voters list as well.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor McLeod, Councillor Tweel, you have to go? Yeah. Okay, see you later.
Thank you,
Councillor McLeod and then Councillor Ramsey.
For the municipalities that went full online voting, how did that affect the seniors voting? Like, I can think, it's going to increase young vote for sure, probably, right? But what about the seniors home? If they went all full online, it would have to drop.
I'm sure it had an impact, but when it comes to seniors' homes, we deal a lot with the administration within those homes, hospital voting as well. So we engage the workers within the homes to help us out. Actually, at the hospital, we hire off-duty nurses that actually go around and do the voting there. What we would envision, something like that, if people wanted to do it, they would have that ability from their hospital bed, essentially, to do the online voting, which would be a lot more accessible for them. But it is a bit of a learning curve. It is a bit of a challenge, for sure. Now, we would have that ability to say, do we still want to do mobile polls at the seniors' homes? That's something that we can explore. That's not something that we're saying needs to be completely off the table. Like I said, we need that everybody to agree on the online side of things, and we would like to agree on the number of advance days. But if we do mobile polls, because Charlottetown does mobile polls for certain seniors' homes, but of course, Cornwall doesn't have any seniors' homes, so there are no mobile polls there. So we can work around those logistics within our office for sure. But we would make sure that everybody who is entitled to vote has the ability to vote.
Good point, good point. Councilor Ramsey?
Well, Councilman Twelve basically asked the questions too, because in my ward, I got 5 senior homes. And as I sort of bring up to council the other time too, when it's a social media era, right? And it's basically directed at young people and all that stuff. But there's an awful lot of seniors, I don't know how to turn on a phone, you know, and one of these things or anything like that. And I'm just hoping that that would still be allowed in their homes, because they will not be voting online.
Well, and like I said, that's something that really doesn't have anything to do with the online side of things. That's something that we can very easily do. There are a number of seniors' homes and locations within Charlottetown that are on the mobile poll list. Those are
Keep the
things
mobile
that
polls in your bylaws.
you keep those in the bylaws. That means that we keep doing them. It's a bit of a non-issue. Now, if some of the seniors want to do it because they have an iPad,
Well, some are very good.
they're, you know, grandkids want to help them out, or they're able to do it themselves, great, all the power to them. Now, in the plebiscite, the largest demographic to vote online was the seniors.
60 plus.
Yeah,
Yeah, 60 plus.
so that's just a little feather in your cap when you go to the seniors.
I mean, we all know that
Yeah,
older
that
people
group, Kevin?
vote more than young people anyway.
Yes.
Kids are brought up that way, right? And they're all at a certain age and they're gonna vote.
Yeah.
And young people say, "Ah, who cares?"
The one mobile poll that would be affected potentially by online voting is the hospital. It probably would be recommended to not have the hospital as as polling, because if someone's at the hospital, they probably have their smartphone, they've got nothing else to do, they can apply online and they can vote online. It really is difficult, and there is sometimes a disenfranchisement with those folks. If they're in ICU, if they're in somewhere that's isolated, the nurses won't even go in because they can't go in and they can't scrub out or anything. So we have had people in provincial election who just can't get the opportunity to vote, even though we have a mobile poll at the hospital and we're going room to room, because they're not able to get in. So those people were able to apply online if they knew they were in for a lengthy stay, or if they broke their ankle the night before and they were going, they can go and apply. They missed online voting, or sorry, they missed the advanced days. They can still do online voting for election day.
Yeah.
So that would be your mobile poll, the one that would be impacted, but the seniors' homes could just remain in person, paper ballots, counted with the advance. You're still gonna have 2 advanced days. So those wouldn't be affected at all.
Yeah, thank you.
And at the QEH, for that mobile poll,
Yeah.
just in the last election, how many votes were cast? Do you
The
remember?
last,
Many.
What?
The last provincial, I
It's-
think, is what we can go by. I think we had 10,
Yeah, it's really hard to get into the
maybe
house.
12.
So it'd be easier to do it online.
Well, and it would serve the patients a little bit better. I know my grandmother, before she passed away,
Yes.
during the election, she wanted to vote. She was asleep when they came to her room. They didn't wake her up. She didn't get the opportunity to vote, and she was not pleased about that, but
And
that
she
was the
wouldn't.
reality anyhow. But if the voting period was open for a 10-day or a week period, you know, I could have gone in to help her vote.
I know her well, and she's
Yes,
happy.
you would know her.
No, it was very good. She was not happy to miss it.
Mrs. Nantis.
Yeah.
Mrs. Nannis.
But and it increases the opportunity for some people in certain situations, because as opposed to having that one opportunity, that 30-second window or one advance or whatever they're able to get to, if you have an open period of 7 to 10 days where they can vote, that gives them a lot of time to get in there to do it and to get some help to be able to do it.
And for students, I know for Alec and some of the students are in Halifax, it would be easy, or anywhere.
Well, and the mail-in ballot.
Would the mail-in ballot be replaced?
Yeah, yes, we would totally pull the mail-in ballot. The reality around the mail-in ballot, logistically, it's
a nightmare.
It's a nightmare for us to manage.
Yeah.
And the last provincial election, we put a lot of work for 5 votes.
Sound like Trump.
The last provincial election, we had to use a courier service instead of Canada Post, and we were sending out some ballots that were costing $140 for one.
Yeah, oh, it's unbelievable.
And I mean, it's somebody's, it's in the Charter of Rights, they get to vote in a provincial election, we will do everything we can to get them their ballot, but if we had an online option, it would take that away.
It's fair to say, Tim, that you would, if you were to make a recommendation, you feel this is the way to go, it's secure enough, and this would be a recommendation to try this?
Online voting's been around for a while. The security has increased significantly over the years. There are some companies that really do a very good job in this. The Northwest Territories brought in online voting for their territorial election in 2019 for their, they call it an absentee ballot, for their mail-in ballot side of things. And it worked very well. They had an audit afterwards. They had no security issues to it whatsoever. There are some inherent security issues that we would have to make sure that we did everything we could with the company to make sure that we would mitigate those security risks. But we would work with them to the best of our ability to make it a very secure election. The integrity around online voting is ever increasing. Now, as you move up the scale from a school board to a municipal to a provincial to a federal, there are different levels that you would need to take a look at. But there are a lot of municipalities, well over 200 municipalities in the country, in Canada alone, that are using online voting as at least a portion of the voting process. And you know, we're not hearing, seeing anything about any widespread issues of fraud or, you know, vote tampering, anything like that. They're really not having any issues. I would also recommend that we would do an audit afterwards. There is a bit of an additional cost to this, but it's a forensic IT audit of the system. They kind of look at it in advance, they look at it afterwards, just to make sure that that everything was done correctly, and we can have some you know. Oh, it is.
It is a requirement.
It is a requirement. Sorry, under the MGA.
What's a requirement?
An audit.
An audit.
Under the MGA.
Yeah. So it is something that we would add in, but it would be a cost that would be shared amongst the 5 large municipalities.
The grant.
As well. There are some independent people in the country who do this type of work.
So, Your
And if
Worship,
you are
What's
concerned
that?
about the security part of it, if you're interested in having a little bit of a read, it might put you to sleep, but in the back of our 2016 report on the plebiscite on democratic renewal, we did have an audit team come down for the provincial, and what they did is they took voter cards that would have been sent out to people on our list of electors, and they went on social media, things like that where people share too much information, because one of the shared secrets in 2016 was date of birth. So they went on Facebook, they went on Instagram, Twitter, to see if they could figure out when people were wishing a happy birthday, and then try to go back and guess the year so that they could try to, because they had their PIN number, and they couldn't. It was negligible, and so when we got our audit report back, it was a really positive audit report and said that we mitigated all the risks.
Good.
And so we would be looking to do something similar to what we did in 2016 with the upcoming municipals.
Good.
so, Your
Well,
Worship,
that's encouraging there, Tim, and
if we can get a motion of support to move in this direction and to have 2 advanced polls, at least to be an indication to elections PEI that is your intent. We can follow up with everything else, but at least this will kickstart the process for them, and they can go back and deal with the other 4. Because again, it won't go ahead unless all are in, and we need to make clear whether we are or are not in, Your Worship.
yeah, let it go back to the strategic priorities intergovernmental cooperation committee, and then
Council's here as a whole, Worship.
yeah, but we can do it in a monthly meeting. Do you want to rush it right away?
At least give an indication that there's a desire to move forward, Your Worship. That's
Is
all.
there an appetite for it?
Oh,
Yeah?
It's a move of the future.
Absolutely.
What we'll do with that, speaking to Peter, kind of, you know, encouraging that.
You're all right with Terry?
Yays or nays, so, what we will do with that is what our process right now will be, is to do a formal letter, to each of the municipalities that say, here's the proposal, here's what
And vote on
we're
that.
asking for everybody to agree to.
Yeah.
Then you as a council can essentially
question.
vote on that to say, okay, this is what we're setting in stone. If it, you know, online voting, 2 advance days, election day, that will be, you know, kind of what we put in that formal letter that we put out. And then that would be kind of the formal decision on that, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, so
Yeah.
that you'd be able to.
So you
kind of
keep the
vote.
Friday and the Saturday, knock off the Monday.
Yes, yeah, the Saturday and then the Friday and then the election day, Monday itself. Knock out that middle advance day is what the good recommendation, I think, would be. That gives people plenty of time for the advance. If they miss the first Saturday, they get the Friday coming. And then the online voting would be kind of open that entire period anyhow, so we would allow.
Right up until election day?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's our plan anyhow.
Great.
Now, we have to work with the company as well to look at some best practices and what they're able to do, but that's our plan for sure.
So Tim, can you put some of those details will be in your proposal to Mr. Kelly?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it looks like at the end of the day, it's pretty well the same cost.
Basically.
Yes, what we're envisioning, and again, they're estimated figures, but what we're envisioning is that if you knock out one election day and add in online voting, it's a bit of a wash.
Yeah.
It's essentially what you were going to spend on the election. Yes, you lose one advance, but you get to add in the online portion.
Good.
Yeah.
So green light to go ahead?
Yep. So,
Did
yeah.
you hear that, Mr. Kelly?
Sure.
Okay, sir.
I will be back in touch with Mr. Kelly with formal.
Send him a letter, formal
very
letter.
soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Elections meeting guy, thank you very
I
much.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Have a good evening, and let's hope that Toronto wins tonight.
I'm with you on that one.
Are you?
I'm with you on that one.
Jesus, first time you agree with him this year.
So, Councillor Rivard has to leave. I know Councillor Tweel has left. So all we have is affordable housing. Do you want to leave that till next Monday?
It's gone, he's gone.
We did our votes last
Yeah,
night.
so I'm just confirming it, just don't want to leave. Well, why did we do this? So, are we all right with that?
Affordable housing is so important, we need to be fresh.
So, next Monday, are we all right to come back next Monday?
As well as.
Tracy? Special meeting, 5 o'clock.
As well as the closed session, Your Worship, as well.
We're gonna have the closed session on that raccoon.
So what time is it?
Mice.
5 o'clock next
Is
week?
mice included in that too?
5 o'clock.
Raccoons and skunks?
We have planned.
Next Friday, or next Monday.
We all work around the schedules.
We want to get to the rock, or to the stones before they hibernate. They'll be going indoors, in the tunnels, any time.
They'll all be gone.
Well, something was saying, what? Very good. Could we go to adjournment? Oh, sorry.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
You can ask whatever question you wish, Councillor
And
Yanka.
I apologize in advance, I'm
Councilor Wayne?
asking Councilor Duffy this now.
Oh,
Where are we at? What's our next step? After we had the STR meeting the other
Yes.
Monday,
Yeah.
what's our next step? I've had a lot of residents asking me.
okay. That meeting we had on May the 17th, that wasn't a meeting of council. That was more of an after 14-month absence, welcoming everybody back, getting new data to talk about, to talk on, or using as a basis. Realizing that a lot of people have stepped out of the STR world and have moved, just to kind of refresh and reset the whole scenario. So that was to get people to come together and discuss the issue after 14 months of lying dormant. Now it will revert back to the normal channel of action, which will be when the curtain came down on the world on March the 19th of 2020. I believe Planning Board had made a recommendation to City Council to refer this issue of STRs to a public meeting, public consultation
Scenario
process.
4.
It never got that far, so we will be starting the engine up again on that, and that same recommendation, I believe, will be coming into City Council. So we're back on the council rails, okay? That was just more of a public relations, community involvement, that type of thing.
But Councillor Duff, the information we collected is all part of the information we're putting together, okay?
That's right. Everything we've collected, we will consider, of course.
Yeah.
That was another thing, was we want as much information to make the best decision we can. And where we get it, how we get it, and when we get it, it's appreciated, and we keep it, and we will record it. That's a good point, Your Worship.
Yeah.
So the next meeting of council, is that where the recommendation comes back, or does it go to planning first?
It goes to planning.
Planning Board first.
So planning board first,
Yeah.
and then we come back whether or not we're recommending going to another public.
correct.
Yeah, just as normal procedure.
And is that June,
We're back on
planning
the-
to come in June to council, correct?
Pardon? I'm not sure, that hasn't been decided. There's so many things that have not been firmly decided. There's a lot of positive thinking, but it will be, we'll have, people will be aware in lots of time.
Yeah. But I'm sure, Councillor Duffy, it will be at our next Planning and Development Standing Committee meeting, correct?
I would assume,
Yeah.
yes, because that's action that was taking place on May 17th, for example.
Okay.
That would flow into our next planning board meeting, which would be a week from tonight.
Thank you, sir. Is that all right, Councillor Yankoff?
Yes,
Thank you for the
very
question.
much.
Thank you, thank you.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Tracy, I want to get the names.
Are we not talking about scope record?
No, that's been deferred.
The